Persuasive speaking is a really distinct style. So if you started listening to a TED talk without seeing the visuals, then you would probably be able to identify the type of presentation. So persuasive techniques are what we use to appeal to the human mind. So let's have a look at some of these techniques. Imagery or figurative language. It's all about painting a picture of a scene or action, and you can be using lots of different figurative language strategies, similes, metaphors, analogies, and the like. Personification, alliteration, repetition, there's lots of different examples. So an example here, excessive logging has created smoldering, charred, lifeless wastelands, home to nothing more than ash. So if an audience can visualize the problem, they're going to be more likely to connect with and agree with the speaker's argument. So in this case, we can see the problem, see how bad it is, how much we want to avoid that happening, and that is adding to the persuasive element. It's making the audience feel like they want to do something to stop this from being the reality. There are lots of examples of figurative language, so make sure you brush up on all of the different examples. And when it comes to imagery, don't just think about what something looks like as well. You've got the idea of sensory imagery, and that encompasses all 5 senses. Not only sight, but also touch or feel, hearing, smell, taste. So consider all of those when you're trying to use this strategy in your persuasive writing and your creative writing as well. Hyperbole is another example of figurative language. So this is all just about exaggeration. You're blowing something out of proportion for a purpose, to show how the situation is a really big kind of thing. In this case, an example, rugby league players plod in gangs towards each other to thump, maul, and gouge for a few centimeters of turf. So that is a definite exaggeration, because in a few different ways. So they don't actually maul each other. That is not obviously what we do in sport, in any sport. And they do go further than a few centimeters. So you can see how we're actually exaggerating that by saying that it's a lot smaller than what it is. Some really clear examples that we probably use in everyday language is things like, it's taking forever for me to do my assignment, for example. It's clearly not actually taking you forever, because we don't live forever. So that is a simple example of hyperbole. And using colorful or over-the-top language is going to make that dramatic impact on an audience. And it can be really effective when you don't have much time to work with, because it doesn't take much for you to exaggerate something like this. And be careful with this not to jeopardize your credibility. So you want to have actual key statistics and facts that you're including that are true and correct and not exaggerated at all, but then also hyperbole can go along with that too. So don't use statistics in that hyperbolic kind of way and then mislead the audience. You want to maintain your truthfulness and therefore your credibility. Rhetorical questions are a key part of persuasive writing, and hopefully you'll be familiar with what they are. So there's typically it's a question that you ask without expecting any kind of answer. So, how much longer will it take for us to see the truth? How many more people have to get hurt? Sometimes it's just you don't expect an answer. Other times there actually is no clear answer. And another strategy with this is you can ask a question like this and then answer it yourself straight away. That can be a really effective way of getting the audience thinking, but then directing the audience to the sort of thought process that you want them to be taking. So it's going to invite or challenge an audience to agree with the argument, and it's going to encourage them to take a stance on the ideas you're posing. So hopefully you are doing it in such a way that they take your stance on the issue. Repetition. This is about repeating arguments and images, evidence, appeals, emotive language. It can be all sorts of different things that you repeat. So the tragedy is this tragic notion beyond the obvious. So this idea of tragedy here is being repeated, and it's going to emphasize key parts of your argument. It helps the reader remember them, and it links sections of the argument together, so you've got a sense of cohesion. Repetition is also a really good one to combine with things like the rule of three. So oftentimes we'll have three different things that we repeat. So perhaps for your call to action, you say, we must, we must, we must. Have three different sentences outlining three things that you are appealing to the audience that they need to do. And that's using that rule of three, because having three things, and then it's using that repetition of that wording as well. And that comes into this idea of triplets, using words in groups of three for emphasis and phonetic appeal. So hunting is evil, cruel, and outdated. Now, there's multiple ways of doing triplets. You can do it like that in one sentence, or you can do it in separate sentences. You've got do it well, do it fast, and do it now. So those two examples are both triplets in a single sentence. As I mentioned, you can have those separate sentences as well with three different ideas. And it presents beliefs as if they are factual truths, and it's allowing readers to understand and connect what is being said. So we see lots of things that come in threes, like traffic lights, the blades on fans, all sorts of things come in threes, and three things together are said to be more memorable and more impactful. That's why triplets are so effective.